Okay. Are we live? I think we're live. Yes. All right. Time for a quick video before I go out and go to the farmer's market and on the way have a breakfast, probably at the Mexican place, which you should be doing too. Both of those things. Eat some cheap food that's really good for you, and go to the farmer's market and buy some more food that's really good for you and it's good for the farmers, and they're your local producers, so support your local producers or prepare to starve. Today I was listening to Peter Carter. What's his channel? Well, most of you probably listen to Peter Carter and his channel. He has guests. On this occasion, he did not. He was just talking by himself. And he was talking about David Suzuki, who he heard some about. David was talking. And I heard a little bit of David Suzuki, too. And I found out through Peter that he's 89 years old. Man, he looks great for 89. He's really powerful, and his mind is really sharp, and he's talking real shit about climate change. And Peter was saying that he appreciated David Suzuki's. This is to say David Suzuki, who was a really excellent science communicator 2 decades ago. He's kind of retired now. And he was saying that David was right about a lot of things. And that's interesting to me because I've heard David Suzuki talk about this topic, climate change, global heating. And he basically says we're fucked. Pretty much. He may have even used that exact word. I think I laughed when he said it. Yeah, we're really fucked. We're screwed. We're done, and we're cooked. So he's talking along those lines, and why wouldn't he? I mean, I say the same thing, and I can justify what I'm saying by looking at data and events in the real world, and and some of the latest work by people like James Hansen, who is basically saying, yeah, we're kind of fucked. And when you get enough people who you trust and are reliable communicators and don't have an axe to grind, I mean, James Hansen is retired from NASA. He doesn't work for the government anymore. David Suzuki is retired. He doesn't really have any axe to grind. He isn't beholden to anybody for grants or for a salary or for a endowed chair, and he's just out there saying how it is. Same thing. My exact same situation. I'm not beholden to anybody. My boss finds out what I'm doing, they're going to fire me. Oh wait, I don't have one. Oh, actually, she's sitting right over there, and she approves. Okay, so laugh. Yeah. So David Suzuki was laying down the law, and Peter Carter spoke up about it. Now, I like Peter Carter, and I like Paul Beckwith, and I like all these people. They're doing good work. They're communicating. They're earnest. They really mean what they say. I think they're way too optimistic, and I think that they. How would my dad say this? I'm going to be crude. You may want to cover your ears right now. But these are people who love humanity, and they wouldn't say shit if they had a mouthful of it, okay? Sorry. But it works, okay? These people would never say anything that would scare people. They just wouldn't. And David Suzuki and I and James Hansen are saying, oh, yeah, you chimps, you're in trouble. You're not going to make it. You're probably all going to die. Because that's probably the truth. And, I don't have to worry about who doesn't like it. I don't even care who's subscribed to this channel. Like the video, subscribe, do it, don't. Whatever, I'm not making money here. I really have a fiduciary responsibility to get on here and say what I think is the truth. So does David Suzuki. So does James Hansen. And James Hansen gets brickbats all the time. He publishes a paper, and all of his supposed colleagues, they come boiling out of their university professorships and boiling out of their endowed chairs and boiling out of their paper mills, and there's, he can't be right. He's misinterpreting the data. Why? We have alternative data. We have different models, and our models say we're fine, and we have lots of time, and, burn fossil fuels. We'll take out the CO2 later, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be just utopia and flying cars and the Jetsons, and, Cure cancer while we're at it, using fossil fuels. And, and then, doesn't stop him because he's not getting any money from these people. He's retired. He has his own funding sources. Who knows who those people are, but apparently they're supporting his message. So he's doing the science. He's doing the science the way he wants to do it, which is to say he's doing the science the way it needs to be done. And he's coming up with the same shit I came up with, and I'm just sitting here looking at the headlines and watching what's going on in the science. This is not rocket surgery, okay? You can see what's happening to the planet. And if you've been paying attention to the IPCC reports, and you've been paying attention to all the treaties and the COPs and the IPCCs and everything else, you know that they have been really, really settling this thing down. It's like we've got hundreds of years. We can burn lots of fossil fuels before it gets tight. We got no, not a problem. Push this down, not a problem. Everybody drive, fly, go to work, make money, fund your 401k. But if you go out and you look in the environment, okay, again, observations, we're doing science here. If you go out and look at the observations and you watch what's happening with the weather and you watch the headlines and you put two and two together and you look at it with basically an unbiased eye and just do your critical thinking, put your critical thinking hat on, you can just see. And and the phenomenon of just seeing this happening is becoming increasingly phenomenal. People are seeing it and they're commenting on it. And people are getting nervous. They're looking around. They're saying, that's weird. That should not have happened. That's never happened before. Wow, look at all these cars floating down the middle of Main Street. Well, our town has been here for 80 years. We've never had cars floating down the middle of Main Street. What is this about? And they're letting the gears turn because it's starting to threaten their existence. And when you start to kill people and you start to destroy their homes and their communities and destroy their livelihoods, well, then the gears start turning because people are going to people. And that's why, of course, the mainstream science is constantly saying, don't worry. And that's why the mainstream media is constantly saying, don't worry. And that's why the Trump administration is hiding the data and firing the scientists and bringing down the satellites and defunding the research and doing all the things. Oh, they're even going back and rewriting required congressional reports. I don't know when the requirement started, probably back in last century. Congress decided, if there's going to be global heating, then we need an annual report about how this is affecting the United States and how big a deal this is so that we can make informed decisions based on the science. Well, the Trump administration is not only going to edit those reports as they come out for Congress, they're actually going to go back. They're so terrified that people are going to notice that they're going to go back and edit all the old reports to make them more acceptable to the Trump administration. This is 1984. This is memory holing things. This is the memory hole. Go back and read your 1984 and find all the parts where they talk about the memory hole. That's where you put things that you don't want to remember. It's simple. It's an authoritarian tactic. They basically come back and say, global heating? No, we never had reports on that. No, you can't find them. No, that's just the Mandela effect. You thought we had reports. You thought Congress required reports. You thought there was going to be something in there. But no, you're just misremembering, though that never happened. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it. They're rewriting the reports, hiding the data, firing the scientists, closing the Storm Prediction Center, shutting down the National Weather Service, defunding NASA. They're doing all this because they're terrified. Because people are noticing. Because physics is real. So David Suzuki, and me and some others, right, who have no real ties into the system anymore, we just come out and we say, look what's going on. Well, that's interesting. That's going to leave a mark. And we just call it the way it is. Which is what I'm doing here. I'm just saying it as it is. And so is James Hansen. So Peter Carter comes on. Now here's my beef with Peter Carter. Okay, he's analyzing David Suzuki and he's saying, David is right. I'm like, really? Is this Peter Carter I'm listening to? Peter Carter says David Suzuki is right? You mean he would even say I'm right? I don't think so. So I listened And it turned out it was like, well, he's right, and that, things are whatever. I can't remember what he said he was right about. But then he comes back and he says, okay, while he can be right about something, he's wrong, or he missed the mark on this other stuff. We have to go after the oil companies. We have to punish the banks. We have to de-invest. We must, have more science, better science. We have to get the government out of science. We need truth. We need justice. We need equality. We need all these other things. Okay, and Dr. Peter Carter is not a doctor of climatology. Dr. Peter Carter is a medical doctor or some other kind of doctor. And he's the wrong kind of doctor. He's probably a really nice doctor. He's a nice guy. And his heart is in the right place. But his heart is not in the science because he can't face it. He needs a happy story. Just like he would want a happy story if he approached a patient with cancer and he wants to tell them a happy story. Now, as a physician, you have a fiduciary, again, a legal responsibility to tell people the truth. But you can always hope that there's something else going on. But in science, you can't hope for anything. There is no hopefulness in any of this. It's just data. And well, that's cruel. You could want better data. No, you can't. No, this is antithetical to doing fair and honest science. You can't hope for any outcome. You have to go into it with a stiff upper lip and posture erect, and then you just look at the data. All right, here we go. Data. Well, we're fucked. I mean, that's how you do this. You don't do this hoping that the data shows you unicorns and rainbows, because if that's what you're hoping, that's probably what you're going to get. Because there's enough ambiguity in some data collection methods, and there's some data that maybe, I'd rather that not be in the data set, so I'll just prune that off as errors, and you can massage the data, and I'll correct some of this stuff here. I know that's wrong. Someone else did a model, and so my model must be wrong, so I'll just ignore this angry stuff that I would rather not report on, and pretty soon you've got rainbows and unicorns. So you can't go into science hoping, my best hope, rub my lucky rabbit's foot and hope with the best hope possible that it's going to be good news. You can't do science that way. Is this not obvious? I hope that's obvious. That's not how you do science. Scientists are like me. If you're doing science correctly, then you're a son of a bitch. You're heartless. You're rigid. You're uncaring about results. James Hansen is reporting data outcomes that it should cause global alarm. Seriously, we can dispense with the IPCC. If his stuff is anywhere even close to accurate, and look at his methodology to find out what he's doing, if it looks good and it looks solid, then we are well and truly fucked. I don't know how else to say it, people. We have a global emergency on our hands. We have a global emergency like the Titanic having just struck the iceberg. That kind of global emergency. Yes, that's the metaphor. We have hit the iceberg and we're going down. So there you go. There's your emergency. Are you going to go down with the ship, or are you going to get off the ship? Those are your two choices. So Peter Carter is always trying to pin the problem on the oil companies and pin the problem on the governments. And, we need legislation and we need more innovation. And maybe 80 years ago, that argument would have been sound, meaning we would have time to get better governments and get the oil companies to but here's the other side of that same coin. The real problem is not even what Peter identifies, that the oil companies have lied and the governments have been feckless and greedy and corrupt and whatever. We need more. They are defunding science. We need more science. That's not really the problem. The oil companies. I don't know. I'm going to say something now that's going to be really controversial. And you're going to really hate me for saying this. You're going to unsub and, downvote and, never come back. This is going to drive everybody away. But it's true. The oil companies did not create global heating through enhancements of the greenhouse effect, through the emission of carbon dioxide. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. And funding, fracking and funding oil exploration didn't do that. And the Trump administration, I will never, ever blame the Trump administration for causing or exacerbating or failing to address global heating. I will never do that. Because Donald Trump is not responsible for this. Go ahead, unsub. Or hang around for 30 seconds and you'll understand. Who is responsible for this shit show? Ask yourself. Just ask yourself. Just take a minute. You know, the fossil fuel companies, they dug all that oil out of the ground. God, that was such a bad idea. Really, do you actually think that? All that crude oil pumped out of the ground, all that drilling offshore, all that fracking, bad idea. That was a bad idea. Have you ever thought that thought? Even once? About any part of this? That gasoline at the pump. Oh, that is a big problem. That is such a huge problem. Gasoline at the pump, and I just belly my truck up and I take the pump and I put it in my gas tank and I fill that gas tank, and that's wrong. All of that is wrong. That entire scenario. And then I just have to pay money and I drive away. That's all. It's wrong. It's all wrong. You've never had that thought. Not once. Neither have I. Well, I mean, I probably do, which is why I tend not to drive. I got a truck sitting in my driveway right now that I haven't driven in probably 2 or 3 months. And it's an old 1968 Dodge 1-ton. It's been around forever. You know? It's been around for, 50 years now? 60 years. It's a 60-year-old vehicle. Drive that thing into the ground every 3 months. Yes, I drive my truck. Now, I don't drive it to the farmer's market, which is where I'll be going in half an hour or less. I don't drive it to the farmer's market. I take my bicycle. And if I have a lot of stuff I want to carry, I have an 8-foot aluminum trailer with dual wheels that I can put plywood on, lumber, concrete, cement, bricks, everything I want. It'll hold 300 pounds. I have an e-bike, and I just go wherever I want to go and do whatever I want to do on my bike with my trailer. Thank you very much. And that's how I do like 99% of my things. And I'm just about to go to the farmer's market, and we're about to get some food, and we'll have breakfast on the way there, all on our bikes. So I'm doing my bit, although that's not why I'm doing my bit. I'm not doing my bit to save the planet from climate change. I'm doing my bit to save myself from fossil fuels. I do not want a life patterned on fossil fuels. I know those are going away. But Peter Carter will never tell you the fossil fuels must go away. And nobody who will ever hear this video, not now and not 10 years from now, will be thinking ever, they will never think fossil fuels must go away. Now, I am possibly wrong about that. I think there's going to be a time when even Peter Carter will stop blaming the fossil fuel industry. And he will say, the fossil fuel industry is not the problem here. We are. They created a problem. They created a product that, yes, was a problem, but we wanted it. We wanted it. And we wanted it so badly, and we used it for so much of our daily life and our communal life and our industry and our infrastructure. We got so deep into fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas, that we couldn't stop. Because if we stopped, we would die. And we can't stop now. If we stop now, we're going to die. I can hear Peter Carter saying that in the future. I can hear David Suzuki, God bless him, saying that in the future. We're burning fossil fuels because we can't stop. Because if we do stop, we perish. I can even see an Apple, they sponsored a video on their Apple TV, not a video, it was a series. And I can't remember the name, damn it. It was, we watched it, Tessa. We watched that series on Apple. What was it, Convergences, or what was it called? Don't you remember? Convergence? Was it Convergence?
You mean like it was dealing with climate change?
Yes. Well, it dealt with the future and how people couldn't change. And that guy was prosecuted at the end, and he said, "You can't prosecute me for destroying the world. All I gave you was what you want." And they let him go. Anyway, it was on Apple TV. And it was a series, and you probably know what it is, and I probably forgot because I'm old.
Well, yeah, it was. They did have something on climate change, and
It was related to climate change. It was like a series of like 8 or 10 vignettes.
on climate, yeah.
And it was really about climate. And at the
Right.
end,
I remember, and you watched, and I fell asleep. Do you remember?
I watched it, and I was really impressed with how they handled the ending.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Yeah, she'll get the name, but it was on Apple TV. It's one of their exclusives. It's like Netflix has exclusives that they make themselves. But this thing with Apple TV was, I think Convergence. She'll get the name. This guy, he destroyed the planet, and he got wealthy. And in the end, like the last episode, he's tried. He was brought to trial for destroying the planet. And his story was, look, I didn't destroy anything. I gave you people a product that you wanted and needed to survive, and you survived. And in the process of using my product that I made for you, you destroyed the planet. So don't blame me. Blame yourselves. And that was like his entire defense. I just stated it. His defense was like 30 seconds. And the judges, who I think were actually AI, artificial intelligence, so maybe that's not the best outcome after all, but the AI judges basically said, oh, damn, he's right. He didn't do anything. He provided us with a service. We all knew what was going to happen if we used it, and we used it, and it happened, and we're blaming him. So in the end, he skipped. He didn't bear any penalties for that. And basically, that guy was the oil industry, the energy industries in general, right? Because it's also coal and natural gas and nuclear and a bunch of other things.
It's called Extrapolation.
Extrapolations, that's right. On Apple TV, Extrapolations. It was a series of short stories, basically, but the real one was at the end. Now, that's what the oil companies are going to do. And Peter Carter blames the oil companies, and they're evil, and they're liars, and they conned us, and they bought the politicians, and there's bribery and corruption everywhere at all levels, but in the end, if you take the oil companies to task and you bring them before the international court, criminal court, and they stand there and they have to say something like to defend themselves, here's what they're going to say. You people knew from the times of Svante Arrhenius, that burning fossil fuels, and that was like, 1890s? That burning fossil fuels was going to enhance the greenhouse effect, and the enhanced greenhouse effect was going to collect heat, and you're going to have global warming, and now it turns out to be global heating. You all knew that. That was in the books. Al Gore brought it to your attention. And lots of scientists have been talking about that. We even created the IPCC process. We even created the COPs, right? The Conference of the Parties. We did all these things. And you knew. And you just kept burning fossil fuels. So we, the oil companies and the gas companies and the coal companies, we are completely off the hook. Y'all knew. Your leadership knew. Everybody knew. And even when the bad weather turned bad, and even when the crises started, and even when people couldn't survive anymore, you knew. You knew why all that was happening. And you kept burning fossil fuels. Now, someone is to blame for this. And I think it's all of us. Because we all want a good life. And that's not wrong. It's just that we misinterpreted the good life to mean lots of consumer goods, inexpensively attained, a clean environment, so certain types of pollution are not welcome, although CO2 pollution was never classified as a unwanted pollutant. So there you go, off the hook. We have a clean environment. We have lots of jobs. We have lots of consumer goods, and that was the good life. That's how we defined the good life. And we had the good life and we liked it, and it was all made possible with fossil fuels. So we thought we were entitled because we had decided we needed the good life, and the fossil fuels gave us the good life. And so we kept consuming the fossil fuels because we are entitled to a good life, and we had a good life. And so we kept doing what we do to have a good life. And so the lie is that that was the good life. That was the lie. That cheap goods and jobs and commuting and cars with good gas mileage and less pollution and more opportunity and more jobs and more money and more wealth, and that's the good life. That's the lie. So who came up with that? Well, capitalists, but we liked it. We liked the story. We all liked the story of the good life. Now, the good life was made possible for the last 100 years at least by fossil fuels. Primarily crude oil. That's it. The good life was made possible by crude oil. That's it. That's the story. That's the whole story. That's all you need to know. And without crude oil, you can't have the good life. No, that doesn't mean you can't have a life, although I think at this point there's enough data, and I think I have proven to myself and hopefully to you in other videos that we're going to lose 999 people out of 1,000. And whoever remains can still have a good life, maybe if only because they have a life, right? If you're alive, that's something. Is that the good life? Anyone who's alive is having a good life. Can we just agree on that? If you're alive, you're having a good life. If you die, you're not having a good life. Is this not obvious? And then if you want to define the good life as having a new iPhone every year, okay, well, that's one definition of a good life. But how about just being alive? How about we just start with the basics? You're alive. You have food, water, and shelter. Okay, you check all those off. Check, 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 check. Okay, fine. And now way down the line of checks, all the other things you have to have, right? Medicine, community, treatments, whatever, all the surgery, all the things down the line. I have all these things. Variety of foods, local foods, security, walls, managing pests, managing disease vectors like mosquitoes. Okay, way down the line. After you get all that stuff worked out, then you get to a new iPhone, I think. So, can you have a good life? Well, you could right up into having an iPhone. Maybe you could. Okay. Yeah, you got food, clothing, shelter. Your children are happy. The elders are taken care of. You've got a community around you, people you can talk to. You laugh, have parties, you share meals, work together, right? Working in the fields, working with the animals, whatever. And that's a pretty good life. Oh, it has the advantage of not being dead. So we burnt fossil fuels to have the good life, as we were taught to believe that. And we had a good life for some definitions of the words good life. And now global heating is going to kill us. So there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. And we must stop burning fossil fuels immediately. And you can blame the oil companies for the fossil fuels. It's true, they did pull them out of the ground. But I think that misses the point. We all wanted the good life. All of us. I do, you do, everyone. Everyone you know, everyone I know, everyone I'm going to pass today on my bike, going to the farmer's market. They're all wanting the good life. And probably, given where I'm living, with all the money floating around out here, they're all living the good life. They know they're living the good life. And it's all made possible with fossil fuels. And when the fossil fuels are gone, they'll be living some kind of a life, or maybe they'll be dead, in which case they don't have a problem anymore. But maybe they're living some kind of a life, and they'll make the best of it they can, and it will be the good life by virtue of being alive, I should think. That should count for something. So, James Hansen and David Suzuki and myself, we're right. You people are screwed. You're going to have to stop burning fossil fuels. Your entire life is going to implode. You are dependent 100% of the time for 100% of the things you need. You don't need an iPhone, but you need food, water, shelter, okay, electricity. You are dependent 100% of the time for 100% of the things you need. Look up the word need. And you're getting all that with fossil fuels. You need fossil fuels all the time, at every step of your life. From when you get up in the morning and cook your food, and where your food come from, and where the stove come from, and where the energy come from to cook the food, and you make your food, and you eat it, and you eat it on a ceramic plate. Where did that come from? And then you get on your bicycle, which came from China, and then you ride your bicycle down to the farmer's market, and where's the how'd that town get there? How'd that asphalt get there? And you go through the intersections with the signals. How'd those signals get there? Where did those things come from? Who manages those at night when you're not sleeping? And you go to the farmer's market, and all the food is on the things. But where'd that food come from? It came from the Salinas Valley. It came from Fresno. It came from Southern California, and it's there on the tables. And at the end of the day, if you stay long enough to see them close out the farmer's market, they back the trucks in. And they put all the stuff that didn't sell back in the trucks and take it to the next farmer's market. Maybe the same day, maybe the next day. And that's it. That's 100% of your life. Just going to the farmer's market. All fossil fuels, all of it, 100% of it. And where those trucks come from? Who built those? Maybe they're Mercedes. Maybe they're Isuzus, and they came from Japan and Korea and Germany, and maybe some of them came from China. And who built them, and how did they build them? Where'd the factories come from, and who built the factories? And how the workers get to the factories, and who's feeding the workers? And how about the parts? All the parts that go into a truck, and all the parts that go into an iPhone, where do those come from? Supply chains all over the world. And some stuff comes from Indonesia, and some from the Philippines, and some from parts of Africa and parts of Europe, and it all gets on trucks and on trains and cargo aircraft, and it all ends up in the place, and then they put it together, they put it in a container, and they ship the container on a ship, and the ship comes to a port, and the port is full of trucks, and the trucks haul the things to the warehouses where all the things are unpacked, and all the employees and all the things that get unpacked, and they go on conveyors, and they go into boxes, and you do an Amazon Prime on a website that's at a data center. Who built the data center, and who coded the applications, and where those computers come from in the data center for your Amazon Prime? And you're on Amazon Prime, and you order the thing, and it's put on a truck, and the truck comes to your house. And where'd that truck come from? And then the thing gets dropped in the front of your house. 100% fossil fuels, 100% of the time, forever. Everything that constitutes the good life. And the fossil fuel companies enabled the good life. And if they ever can't do that, or the price becomes too expensive, and the price, of course, does need to include the price of what happens when you destroy the planet for human purposes. I mean, that's going to hurt, right? That's a cost. We just destroyed the planet from global heating for human purposes. Now we can't live in certain places. We have to move someplace else. That's going to leave a mark, don't you think? That's a cost. Who's going to pay the cost of that? Well, in terms of money, maybe very few people will pay the cost of that because they don't have enough money to actually buy that. They can't buy escaping global heating. So the real cost is they die. Well, is that a cost? Well, you have to pay to bury them. Do you? Is there any cost in people dying? By the hundreds, by the millions? Is there any cost at all to the fossil fuel companies, or you or I, for all these people dying and leaving the planet and not consuming goods anymore? Is there any cost at all? Probably not. They just die. And they just lay in the ground, and the rats eat them, and the dogs, and the cats, and the bones get left behind. And it's in my book. Read my book. Read the fucking book. Buy the book. Link in the description. Buy the book. If you want to know how this works out, buy the book. Read the book. People die. You don't even know how they died. You don't even know how many. It's not even newsworthy. You don't even know. You can't possibly know. There's no way to even find out. 999 people out of 1,000 could die, and you would never know. Unless you're one of them, in which case you don't have a problem. But the one person in 1,000 who survives, they don't have a problem either. It had nothing to do with it. They just happen to survive. And the oil companies know this. They know all that. Everything I just said, they know. And what the Trump administration is doing, by hiding the facts as best they can, and they can do something, not forever, because eventually, physics. What they're trying to do is they're trying to forestall the day. They're trying to push back the date. 2030, 2032, 2035. They're trying to push back the date when the good life comes to an end. And can you fault them for that? Can you fault them for for not wanting to make people afraid? Can you fault them for keeping people on the consumer treadmill? Because people want to be on the consumer treadmill. Have we established this? People want to consume. They want to buy iPhones every year. And earbuds and internet plans and Amazon Prime. People want this. This is the good life. Can you fault the oil companies and the Trump administration for wanting to keep people living the good life? Is that what you're going to fault them for? Because that's what they want. They want an economy. They want consumption. They want jobs. They want people having money and spending the money and buying the cheap shit from China and China making cheap shit. They want all that for us. And we want it. Now, maybe we should want something else. Like, I don't know. I have an idea. Maybe you should want to not die. But no one thinks that. No one ever thinks, oh, climate change, well, that's going to kill me. No one has that thought. Not one person. And not even David Suzuki has that thought. I have that thought. Oh, yeah. I definitely have that thought. It's like, well, this shit's going to kill me, isn't it? How do I get out in front of that? How do I avoid that steamroller? How do I avoid that wood chipper? How do I avoid ending up being bones stripped of meat, still wearing their clothes that they died in? How do I avoid that? I think about that a lot. I'm one of the few people on the planet who has that thought. How do I avoid dying from global heating? Not easy. It is not easy. I wrote the book in part to organize my thoughts about how not to die due to global heating. I wrote the book. It's a user's manual for how not to die during global heating. It's a user's manual. Because I've been thinking about this. And I think very clearly. I do not expect rainbows and unicorns. I do not going into this expecting a happy ending. We're going to get the ending we're going to get. Read the book. We'll see, won't we? Yes, everything is in the description, the links, the everything. Buy me a coffee, like and subscribe, send this video to your friends, buy the book and give it to your friends. Buy me a coffee because that's what this is. And hey, let's have a coffee together. You buy me a coffee, and then you go get yourself a coffee, and you just pretend that I'm sitting across the table from you. Actually, if you've got your cell phone, I can be sitting right there at the same table with you. We could be having a coffee together, and you can say, I bought that man that cup of coffee. And you did. Okay, so I'll take it. And buy the book, and spread the book around, and don't die. How's that for a recommendation? Don't die.